Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. So this is news that we got about a week and a half ago now. I know it's old news, but I still wanted to give my thoughts on it because it does pertain to 3 decks that were used in the anime, 2 Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 decks, and a brand new Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds deck that is yet to be printed that are coming to the main Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG game, and I'm sure will eventually come to the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG as well. So this is all going to happen in Duelist Pack Duelists of Whirlwind, and with these sets what usually happens is 3 characters from the animes, usually the old animes, because obviously Sevens is not OCG related or main game OCG related, so legacy characters, 3 usually, get support. And we knew that Wind Monsters was going to be obviously the theme of Duelists of Whirlwind. I don't think it took a genius to figure that out. And so we kind of expected Yugo and Ruri to get support for their archetypes. Yugo, of course, using Speedroids and Clear Wing, Crystal Wing, 2 very iconic Synchro monsters, 2 very good Synchro monsters, and Ruri using Lyrilusk. But we weren't really sure who the 3rd character was going to be, and as you can tell based on the thumbnail and the title of this video, the 3rd character was pretty shockingly Sherry Leblanc from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Sherry has one of the only Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds decks that is yet to be printed. The only other one that I can think of is Lawton's Gatling Ogre. Remember the guy from Crashtown? I know his cards have not been printed yet. And outside of him, there's really not that many people, and if there are out there in 5Ds that have not had their decks printed, it's probably very obscure characters. So 5Ds really does not have many characters left where you can go back and say, they don't have a deck in the market yet. Let's print that now that Sherry's cards are coming, which is really, really cool. So let's just start with the article and the monster designs. We do not have any effects or names of these monsters, but you can see Yugo's dragon that is leading the charge here with his Speedroids and Clear Wings and Crystal Wings is a beautiful looking, I would assume, upgraded version of Crystal Wing or of Clear Wing. So that is really cool. The monster looks sick. Even though I never used those Synchro monsters, and when I played the game, because Clear Wing and Crystal Wing were pretty relevant monsters when I was getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! A few years ago when I was learning the card game. I've kind of dropped it since then, at least playing competitively. This was a monster that absolutely would always obliterate me. I mean, Crystal Wing and Clear Wing were just nightmares for me to deal with, and I'm sure they're not as lethal as they once were with, Link monsters and with how the meta has changed, but I remember this card, both of those cards really, were just absolutely lethal, and so I'm really intrigued to see the effect of this monster and to see all the updated Yugo support that we are going to get. So really cool stuff there. And then another Arc 5 character, instead of one of the U-Boys, we're dealing with one of the Bracelet Girls, and that is Ruri, Shun's younger sister, who plays Lyrilusk. Now, we only saw Ruri duel twice. Unfortunately, we never saw her duel in Arc 5 when she was not brainwashed by that parasite. She dueled against Yugioh, teaming up with Serena, and she dueled against her brother Shun, the duel against her brother Shun I thought was a very underwhelming duel, especially for the build-up. We had the Battle Beast stuff going on during that duel, which I think just... It was a tough stretch of episodes, but the duel that she had teaming up with Serena against Yugioh was amazing. We had that Odd Eyes Raging Dragon summon and moment, which was one of my favorite moments from Arc 5, one of my favorite moments in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So she was a part of that memorable duel. So the monster looks beautiful, very aesthetically pleasing monster. I'm interested to see what kind of support Lyrilusk is going to get. That's another archetype that I would go up against every now and then, and the way that archetype works is very unique, and I always hated going up against it because that was another archetype that would just absolutely wreck me. Although, as I'm saying this, I'm starting to think that every archetype wrecks me because I'm not a good duelist. That's probably what the case is, so, I'll have to do some reflection there. But finally, The main course that I want to spend some time talking about is this beautiful monster riding a really awesome looking horse, holding a huge Dark Souls looking shield, and this is a monster that is going to power up the deck of Sherry Leblanc. And there's probably a few of you out there that don't even know what cards Sherry used, because number one, it's been about a decade since 5Ds, which is crazy to just say, and number two, there's probably a decent amount of you that just never watched 5Ds. And so Sherry's deck that she used, her turbo deck, because she only had one duel where she was standing on the ground, which was at the end of 5Ds when she dueled Aki and Crow, and that deck had cards that Zone had clearly given her and that she was utilizing because she was working with Zone, so I don't really expect any of those cards to come into play. But the cards that Sherry used, I believe they were Sacred Knights. She had a tuner monster, Fleur Synchron, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and her extra deck monster was Fleur de Chevalier, which of course is a very French-sounding monster, and that's because Sherry was a French character, so it makes sense there. Her effect monsters were Sacred Knight Joan, Sacred Knight's Shield Bearer, Sacred Knight's Spear Holder, so I would imagine that a lot of these monsters are going to get printed. Horse of the Floral Knights is interesting because the monster on Horse of the Floral Knights reminds me a lot of the monster that is on this new card, so I would imagine this new card is going to be an ace of some sorts, probably a synchro deck. So if you're wondering the playstyle of this deck, it's 5D's era, so I would imagine it's a synchro deck. But something that's really interesting about Sherry that not a lot of people remember is she actually was one of the only characters that fusion summoned. There were a few fusions in 5Ds, and she was one of the characters that did use a fusion called Centaur Mina, which was a woman centaur. You know, Centaur is obviously half horse, half human, and you can see the card on screen there. And Horse of the Floral Knights, the monster I just mentioned, was actually one of the cards that was necessary to fusion summon this monster. It's a specific monster fusion, so you have to use Sacred Knight Spearholder and Horse of the Floral Knights. It's not a generic fusion monster. I wonder if they'll change that if they actually print this card. Once during each of your turns, you can negate the activation of an opponent's trap and return it to its original position. So I feel like for all the trouble it's worth summoning, probably not the best effect or the best monster, honestly. It's just preventing traps, and traps aren't even really used that much in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! So a card that really does not have that good of an effect, but maybe they'll update it, maybe they'll make it generic, or maybe they just won't print that. Now, her ground deck used a really cool spell card called Soulbinding Gate, École des Zones, and of course Zone, which is a direct reference to the main villain of, or the main antagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. I don't expect to see this card printed, even though Sherry was someone who used it, because again, that duel that she had at the end where she used this card, she was really infiltrated and, I don't want to say brainwashed, but definitely put on the wrong track by Zone, and this was a card that you would not find in her normal deck without his influence. So I'd love to see this card printed, but it doesn't really have much relevance to her deck style, and I don't think that we're going to see it printed. But all the Sacred Knights that we have so far, Fleur Synchron, and especially Fleur de Chevalier, which is her main synchro ace, I definitely think we are going to see, which is really, really awesome. And of course, this new, I would imagine, synchro monster of one of her Sacred Knights on a horse, which again looks really cool. So that is awesome news. I always love, as you guys know, seeing anime exclusive decks printed and seeing anime decks get support. So Yugo, Ruri, and Sherry all getting support in Duelists of Whirlwind, which is coming out in the OCG in just a few weeks. But guys, let me know all your thoughts on this news. Let me know if you're excited for Sherry's deck. Let me know if you think Sherry's deck is going to be, I hate saying meta viable, but let me know if you think it could be potentially a good deck, maybe a top tier deck even, or maybe a rogue deck. It's probably an impossible question to answer because we don't have any of the effects of these monsters yet, so I'm probably jumping the gun even asking something like that. But you guys let me know. Let me know which of these three you are most excited for, Lyrilusk, Speedroids, or Sacred Knights. And thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. And a special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, Jarrett Buller, and X-Slayer 64, and to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood, Latrell Smith, and Anime Kaput, and to my Egyptian God tier patron, XZ's Lover 104. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon and who is a YouTube channel member. You guys help me out tremendously, and I would not be able to do this without all of you. I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/SuperDeepRot. Link to that is down below. Check out my channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime content. And I am really excited to talk to you all things Duelists of Whirlwind and Yu-Gi-Oh! In the comments section. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.